All right, our unit 11 is on acids and bases. These are probably some things that you've learned. How many of you guys have learned about acids and bases like in middle school or something like that? Okay. The lotion that Sam is putting on his face right now is probably a base. We're going to learn about acids and bases here. Okay, what are some examples of acids that you guys can think of? Yes?
Corrosive.
Corrosive. It is corrosive. That is a description of an acid, and so are bases, though. A lot of people don't realize how corrosive bases are. If I give you a high concentration of hydrochloric acid, that's an acid. Okay, that is going to be corrosive. That could burn through your skin. If I give you sodium hydroxide really concentrated, that's also a base, and that is going to be super corrosive as well. So both can be corrosive. What are some examples of like, oh, in my kitchen, I have this, and this is acidic?
Stomach acid.
Stomach acid, yes. I love having a jar of stomach acid in my kitchen. Okay.
Citric acid.
Citric acid. You guys dealt with that with the little yellow containers that we had over there from lemons. Vinegar. Yes. Lactic acid, yes. That's the when you are going on a run or something like that, if you don't have enough oxygen, then your cells start producing lactic acid. That makes your muscles sore. So that's part of why you're sore after you're exercising. Yep.
What's the acid inside of the pineapple?
Bromic acid. And wait, no, bromic acid? Am I making that up? I might have just made that up. I don't even know. Bromic. I want to say bromic, but I'm not sure why. That was in my brain. All right, bases. Examples of bases. Do you know what bases are?
Alkaline.
The alkaline stuff. Yes, that is a word that we use to describe bases. Alkaline. Yeah?
Soap.
Mm-hmm. Soap is basic. Soap, when it interacts with your skin, it might not feel corrosive, but it is actually interacting and tearing apart some of the fats on your skin. So that is part of what's happening. What do you brush your teeth with? Toothpaste. That's also a base.
Does it not corrode your teeth?
Well, you need it to be a little bit corrosive, or else you're not going to get anything clean. If you got hair stuck down the drain and you can't get it out, where you put down the drain?
Water.
Drain cleaner. Water can't go down the drain, so that's the problem. And bleach. Bleach is an example. Yes, that's also a base. Okay, so for the most part, what do you notice about acids? Yes, they end with acid. Can you eat them? Yeah, it's like edibles. Food, stuff in your pantry, stuff that you want to put into your body or that is already inside of your body is usually acids.
Okay.
The human body deals a lot more with acids. Okay, bases, what does that tend to be? Cleaning stuff. So cleaning products are bases normally, and things that you eat are acids. Don't eat your toothpaste.
What?
This is, when I was a little 4-year-old child, the very first sin that I ever confessed in my life was I swallowed my toothpaste. Because it's not really a sin, but my mom had told me never swallow your toothpaste, and I thought it was because it was a sin, and I felt so bad. I went to the bathroom and I'm like, I'm gonna be rebellious, and I just swallowed the toothpaste, and then I felt really bad about it and confessed it to God. I thought that was a sin in my 4-year-old brain. Anyway, but you shouldn't eat bases. That's the bigger principle that we find in the Bible. Just kidding, it's not in the Bible at all. Okay, acids. How do acids taste? Sour. Okay. Sour lemon. Sour apple. How do bases taste? Bitter. Bases taste bitter. If you've ever said, has anyone had their mouth washed out with soap because you said something bad?
Yes.
Oh, okay. A couple of you have. Yeah, it probably tasted bitter. That's because the principle is that if something shouldn't be coming out of your mouth, then they should put something into your mouth that shouldn't be going in. Ooh. All right. Okay, acids tend to feel sharp. And bases tend to feel slippery. Think about soap is something that's going to, it's like a slip and slide. You can create that with a base. You can't create a slip and slide with acid. Don't do that. Yes, Sam?
What's the difference between sour and bitter?
Sour and bitter? Okay, bitter is like coffee. And on the tongue, there are 35 taste receptors for bitter. And on the tongue, there's only one taste receptor for sour. Sour is only receiving hydrogen from acids. And so that is like, literally your tongue can just, like sour is just acid, that's it. But bitter is any compound that is similar to a drug or a poison that just tastes like gross. Like if you're eating plants and the plant is kind of like maybe not good for you to eat, that is base. But if you're eating like lemon juice, that is sour. Or
So
bitter,
why
sorry.
is sour like very overwhelming if there's only like one taste receptor?
Because if you get so much of the hydrogens, then it can be an overwhelming acidity on your tongue. Yes.
Are there like a ton of different taste receptors in like a single sort of part of your tongue, or is it like?
Oh, it's not. People used to think you had 5 different regions on your tongue. It's not true. You have a generalized, equal dispersion of taste buds around your entire tongue.
So it's not one single sour.
You don't have a single sour patch on your tongue. Yeah. Okay. Now we use litmus paper to test if something is an acid or a base, and you'll be able to do this in the lab that we do later. Litmus it's a paper made from lichen, and lichen has this pigment in it that will change color. And acids will turn the lichen paper or the litmus paper red, and bases will turn it blue, which is really nice. So we're just going to kind of color code acids red and color code bases blue, which is great because in my head acid is red, but base is purple, so it doesn't really help, but it's okay. All right. We're going to look at several different scientific theories that have tried to define the chemical nature of acids and bases. We've known about acids and bases since the ancient Greeks, but we've tried to define them, and sometimes certain definitions work, and other times they don't work so well. So I'm going to teach you 2 definitions of acids and bases that will generally apply in this classroom. Okay, Arrhenius acids. This is named after Svante Arrhenius. He was a Swedish scientist in the 1800s. Okay. Basically, the way that Arrhenius defined an acid was that it just contains hydrogen, and it will produce H plus in a solution. That worked pretty well for our bell work, right? You got hydrochloric acid, you've got nitrous acid, you've got sulfuric acid. Okay, so here's an example. If I take hydrochloric acid, that's the same stuff that's in your stomach. Okay, and there's water in your stomach. That hydrochloric acid, what it actually does is it dissolves in your stomach, and you get H plus, and we can say it's AQ, plus Cl. What charge does Cl have? Yeah, 1 negative. 1 negative, don't forget. And that's aqueous as well. Okay, so because this produces hydrogen ions, it's an acid. Keep in mind, this is just one of the definitions. We'll look at another one. Arrhenius bases, okay, these, notice what do all these have in common? Hydroxide. Oh, this is how he defined a base, is because he was looking at all of them and he was like, oh, they contain O. All right, so OH will produce OH negative, which is hydroxide, inside of a solution. So here I have drain cleaner. This is NaOH. Okay, and that will produce sodium. What charge does sodium have? Not 2 plus, that's calcium. Positive, yep. AQ. And then we got hydroxide as well. So because sodium hydroxide produces hydroxide inside of the water, it is a base. This is the stuff that you boiled at the beginning of the year when we were making our brass pennies. Okay, that is Arrhenius. we're going to look at Bronsted-Lowry. Bronsted-Lowry, these are two guys who defined acids and bases in terms of proton transfer. Okay, and basically it kind of thinks of molecules like they're playing a big game of tag with hydrogen molecules. Or sorry, not hydrogen molecules. Hydrogen ions. Okay. Recall an H plus ion. What's another word for H plus ion? Starts with a P. Proton. Okay. It's one proton.
All protons were in the like.
It is.
On the ring.
This is normally what the hydrogen looks like, is a positive nucleus with one proton and one electron. And if I remove that electron, that's an H plus ion. Same thing as a proton. There is no difference effectively. Okay. In water, protons do not actually exist by themselves. Okay, so you don't actually have an H plus just floating around by itself. Instead, what happens is they're attracted to the other H2O molecules. They're polar, and they combine with them. And they still fulfill the octet rule, but they create something called a hydronium ion. Everyone say hydronium. Hydronium. It sounds like some, I don't know, like secret juice that you're trying to like find in an Avengers movie or something. But this is, you all have hydronium. You've been drinking hydronium already today, even if you didn't know it. Okay. So a hydronium ion, this is a polyatomic ion that I didn't teach you yet, but you got to know it now. It's H3O positive. H3O positive. Here's how it's formed. Let's say yesterday I was at an event at a restaurant, and I got Johannisberg Schule. It was not very good. It was really bitter, and I wanted it to be more sour. So I took a lemon and I squeezed that lemon into the juice, and it made it a little bit better. Okay. What happened when I squeezed that lemon into that water? What?
The
Sam?
stronger acid overwhelmed the alkaline because it's like higher on the pH scale.
Because it is higher on the pH scale?
Like the acid is like.
Lower. We'll learn about the pH scale. Lower is an acid, yes. What happens, okay, here's my little H plus from my lemon. The H plus from the lemon drops into the water. And we're going to kind of draw a little, here, I'm going to draw it over here, sorry. We're going to draw it over here because we'll have more room. Okay. I've got a water molecule right here. Guess what we're going to do? Lewis dot structures. It's been a while. Okay. How many dots do I put over here? 4 more. Okay. This is a water molecule. Okay. It's fulfilling the octet rule. And I've got all these little electrons here. And which side is the slightly positive side of the water molecule? The H is slightly positive and the O is slightly negative. What side is this proton from my lemon going to be attracted to?
Oxygen side.
The oxygen side, because this side is super electronegative. Okay? Now, how many electrons does the hydrogen plus have?
1.
None. So is it possible for the hydrogen plus to bond to the water without messing up the number of electrons?
Yes.
Yes, it can still fulfill the octet rule. It's like, remember how I talked about bonds being like handshakes? The proton is shaking hands with the hydronium, except the proton doesn't have any hands to begin with. So he just kind of...
Jackson is just, I'll shake my hand.
I'll shake your elbow is kind of what he's saying. Yes. Okay, so what happens is now I've got, here's my O, here's my H, and I'm going to add a third H. Sorry, I'm messing up all these colors here. Okay, And the oxygen still keeps his 6 electrons that he had originally and the 2 from the original 2. And the hydrogen just gets to ride onto the H2O molecule and become a hydronium ion. So to make my drink a little more sour, I was increasing the concentration of hydronium ions inside of my Sherla. And that's really what's existing inside of to make something more acidic, you're just turning a bunch of water molecules into hydronium. That's what you're doing. Yes?
Can you make H4O?
Can you make H4O? I've never even heard of that. I don't. But why not? No, I don't know. I've never seen that, so I don't think so. But that's a good question. All right. Anytime that you write H plus and you're talking about it's inside of a watery solution, just assume it's physically hydronium. It's H3O positive. Same thing. And I will interchange between those. If I say H plus, what I mean is hydronium. If I say hydronium, what I mean is H plus. Same thing. Okay, hydronium is always an acid. Okay. More acid means more hydronium. More hydronium means more acid. Let's talk about what an acid really is in the Bronsted-Lowry framework. Okay. Basically, a acid is just a proton or H plus donor. Not donor, donor. So imagine it like a game of tag. Okay, here I've got like a little hydrogen ion right here. Right now I am an acid. This is my proton. Okay, if I want to tag Caleb with it, okay, he's it. He's now the acid. I'm no longer an acid because I don't have the H plus anymore. He's now the acid. Okay, it's a big game of tag within the watery solution. Okay, a base is just a proton or an H plus acceptor. So when the molecule is kind of open-handed and ready to receive the hydrogen ion, that's a base. It hasn't received it yet, but it's about to. Okay, you can kind of think of it if all the molecules were like in a game of tag. The bases are the ones running away, trying to be like, I don't want to be it, I don't want to be it. And the acids are like, I'm going to tag you with my hydrogens. Okay? So right now, Caleb is the acid. Oh, now I'm the acid, and now he's, what is he? He's the base. Okay. The products created after an acid-base reaction are known as conjugate bases and conjugate acids. Do you guys use the word conjugate in another class?
Conjugate.
Conjugate. Okay.
You're conjugating a word.
You're conjugating a word. That's right. Okay. What does that have to do with conjugate bases and acids? I don't know. All right. Once an acid donates its H plus ion, it becomes a conjugate base. And when when a base accepts an H plus, it becomes a conjugate acid. So let's look at an example here. All right, if I take HCl, and that should say aqueous, not gas. I don't know why it says that. Okay. Is this an acid or a base? This is an acid. H2O, what is that?
Water.
It's water. It's acting as a base. Remember I said H2O can be written like HOH? Okay. When you look at the OH part, does that sound like an acid or a base?
Base.
Sounds like a base. But if you look at the H part, does that sound like an acid or a base? Sounds like an acid. Water can be both. It can be either or an acid or a base, okay? Depending on what side you're looking at and depending on how it interacts with the other molecules. Okay, so I got an acid and I got a base. So let's say I'm HCl, I'm hydrochloric acid, and Rogan is water, okay? I'm the acid, what is Rogan?
Base.
He's the base, okay? I give him the hydrogen. What am I? I'm a base now. But I'm not just any base, I'm called the conjugate base. So basically, conjugate just means like after you've played the game of tag, or after I've tagged someone, then we all become conjugates. It's like the next step in the game, okay? So if HCl interacts with H2O and that produces Cl negative, what's the remaining molecule that's going to form here?
H3O.
H3O. Positive or negative? Positive. Remember, we've added one extra proton to the mix, so hydronium's always going to be positive, and I'm going to call that my conjugate acid. So Rogan is the water molecule. He was a base, but because I gave him the hydrogen, he's become a hydrogen. He's become the conjugate acid. Yes?
Is this considered liquid or aqueous?
Oh, H3O?
Yeah.
That's perfect question. It's considered aqueous. Good question. Because it is dissolved inside of H2O. Yeah.
Does the opposite happen, where the water donates an H plus to a base?
Yes. And we'll look at some of those. We're not done here. Hold on. These right here, the acid and the conjugate base, we call these conjugates of each other. So when I transfer the hydrogen to Rogan, I've become my own conjugate, basically. Like the conjugate is just the two different sides of my existence. Okay, and then the base and the acid here, these are conjugates of each other. It's the same molecule, we call these chemical species. It's the same species, it's just changed whether it has a hydrogen or not. So we call those conjugates. Okay, let's go to the next page here. Okay, hydrochloric acid is really strong. This is the stuff in your stomach. It'll break down a cheeseburger if you give it to it. Okay, so there's this really strong, and we have this arrow that moves forward because it's basically like an irreversible reaction. Most of the reactions we're going to be dealing with are reversible, and that means that they flip back and forth. Okay, so it's like Rogan, you can toss me the hydrogen. Okay, this is incredibly reversible. He and I are just playing catch, and we're constantly changing from acid, conjugate, base, conjugate. Blah. I should have gotten a bigger piece of paper there. Okay, so to represent that, we'd use this symbol. Okay, I'm doing a forward arrow and a backward arrow at the same time. It's reversible. Okay, so here I've got NH3, got ammonia, and HOH, just H2O, same thing. Okay, what do you think is going to happen here? Do you know of any molecule similar to NH3 that you've learned about? Ammonium. And what is that? NH4 plus, yes. So we can create ammonium. I'm going to write it over here in this box, NH4 plus. Where did that extra hydrogen come from? The water. So now I have the OH right here. That's going to be left over. OH negative. And these are all aqueous, dissolved in the water. Okay. So OH negative, NH4. The water in this case, is it acting like an acid or a base? This one right here is acid because he's giving his hydrogen away. And the NH3 was a base. Now this is why Bronsted-Lowry's definition is important, because look at NH3. Does he have hydroxide in him? No. Okay? Arrhenius would have said that's not a base. But is hydroxide increasing in the solution? Yes. So in a sense, NH3 is causing an increase in OH because it's ripping off the hydrogen arm off of water. but it's not containing it in its chemical structure. Okay, so this is the conjugate base. So what do I label NH4?
Conjugate acid.
Yes, conjugate acid. And this makes sense because think about if I want to reverse it, I just have an ammonium encountering a hydroxide. The ammonium can just give his hydrogen to the hydroxide, and it's going to become water and revert back to ammonia. Okay? All right. Let's take a quick brain break. Go ahead and stand up. All right, I need you to name 6 countries that start with the letter P with your neighbor. Go.
Philippines. Puerto Rico.
Poland.
Yeah.
Something in Africa.
Probably not good.
Pennsylvania.
Paraguay.
Peru.
Okay, and then name 3 people that start with the letter R.
Rogan. Rogan, Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. And Ryan Reynolds.
Why is going for?
What other countries start with
From Madagascar.
There's Panama, Peru.
Panama, Peru, Poland, Paraguay, Pakistan, Philippines.
But I already said
Ooh,
Philippines.
okay, Palau. Yeah. All right, so let's continue on here. Acids are kind of in between ionic and covalent molecules, okay? They are usually covalent molecules that will ionically dissolve inside of water, okay? Remember in aqueous ionic compounds, okay, all of the ions are pulled apart. So sodium and chloride and salt, they're all pulled apart. In aqueous covalent molecules, does any part of the sugar, for instance, does any part of the sugar pull off? No, it's all there. It doesn't pull apart. With aqueous acids, it's kind of in between. The hydrogen ions, or the protons, they'll split off, and they start interacting with the water solvent. But the rest of the covalent molecule is intact. So you still are getting, like, for instance, with H3PO4, phosphate still stays intact, but the hydrogens are being lost. With things like H3PO4, okay, that has 3 hydrogens. It cannot lose all those hydrogens all at once. It has to lose them one at a time. And that's a process known as dissociation. Everyone say dissociation. Okay? So, we've got 2 types, and we're going to learn how to write these. Okay? We got monoprotic acids. Monoprotic acids are acids that can only donate 1 hydrogen ion. So, hydrochloric acid can only give you 1 proton because there's only 1 proton in its structure. Okay. If we have nitrate, that becomes nitric acid. Okay. I can say that that's going to become H plus NO3 negative. Now, remember what I told you. Does this H plus really exist as just H plus? No. What does it exist as? Hydronium. It is a proton, but it attaches itself to a water molecule to be hydronium. Okay? So sometimes if I write a shorthand equation, I'm just going to say H plus. If I write a longhand equation, I'm trying to show you I'm involving hydronium. So let's write the longhand dissociation of acetic acid, showing its reactions with the water. This is acetic acid. Anytime you see this molecule, it's like, okay? Anytime you see that, notice how I did not say C2H4O2. Typically, if we spell it out like this, that means that that H right there is going to be lost. And so scientists write it on the end so that they can show you like how easily it's going to be flicking off of that molecule. Okay? So when that interacts with the water, we know it's going to create H3O positive. What's going to be left over? The chew. Achoo, bless you. Yes. Chew. That's really, yeah, we should just call acetic acid a chew. All right. But I've lost a proton. So now what is the charge of acetic acid going to be? Negative. Okay. Whenever you lose a proton, you're going to become a negative ion. So don't forget that. What do you think is the opposite of monoprotic acids? Monotheism. The opposite of monotheism is polytheism. Oh, well, atheism too. But acids always, they're not going to, and if an acid doesn't believe it has a proton, then it's not going to function well. Polytheism, not polytheism, polyprotic acids. There are no polytheistic acids. Polyprotic acids. Acids that donate multiple H plus ions one at a time. When the acid loses its positive hydrogen nucleus, the electrons stay behind in the rest of the molecule. It's still leaving a negative charge. So every time I lose an H plus, I'm going to increase in the negative charge. So let's write a shorthand dissociation of sulfuric acid in water. What is sulfuric acid?
SO4.
SO4 is the polyatomic ion that it's based off of. Do you know what charge it has?
2 negative.
2 negative. So how many H's do I need?
2.
2. H2. Rogan, did you have a question?
Yes. Why is it CHCOO instead of C2H3O2?
Like I said, we put the H's. Sometimes we'll arrange it so that is when you get into organic chemistry, it'll make more sense. Basically, you're trying to say that I've got multiple things bonded to each other like this, and so it's kind of showing you the layout of the structure, but it's also trying to tell me, it's trying to make it obvious that that one H is going to be lost as an acid.
I see that.
Okay, so H2SO4 becomes H plus HSO4 negative. Then I get HSO4 negative, and that's going to generate H plus what's going to be left? SO4 with how many negatives? 2 negative. Oh, and what do we call that? Sulfate. So that's how you get sulfate, is when a sulfuric acid dissociates. Or you get sulfuric acid when the opposite reaction happens. Now this is shorthand because that's H plus. If I want to really show what's happening, then I would show hydronium. So let's do that with phosphoric acid. H3PO4 plus H2O does a reversible reaction. What is my first thing I'm going to write here? I can start with either one, but okay, let's start with hydronium. Okay, I got H3O positive. I'm increasing the hydronium because it's an acid. So that H came from the H3PO4. So now what am I left with? H2PO4. And is there a charge on there or not? Negative. Okay. Basically, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to just start down here, okay, with that. So I've got H2PO4 negative. All right, I want you to finish these reactions. Dissociate all the way till you're out of hydrogen ions on your own paper. So H2PO4 negative interacts with the water. Sorry, yeah, H2PO4 negative. That's going to create HPO4 2 negative and H3O positive. So what I need to do is then take this guy down here, and I'm going to set up my next one. Okay. This dissociation thing's happening all the time in nature. This is with phosphoric acid. Carbonic acid, this is happening inside of your Coca-Cola or inside of your soda. When you're drinking soda, carbonic acid is formed from the CO2 that's dissolved in there. And it's those protons that are flying off that are, as it's dissociating, that's hitting your tongue, and that's what gives you that fizzy feeling when you're drinking Coca-Cola. Okay. So, yes, Sam?
Put 2 pluses in the first.
I put 2 pluses.
Yeah, on the bottom. Max. HPO4.
Oh, I put 2 pluses. Thank you. That was a mistake. I was looking at the chart. I lose an aura point. Down to 23. Hey, at least I made the jump into the positives. Okay. Are you on here? Oh, you are. You're at 0.
No, I hit +6 because the track.
You hit +6 because why?
The track.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, +6 strike points.
Oh, tractor points. Yes, but you have 0 otherwise. So I don't know why. Okay, so notice if you look here, you have no negative charge, 1 negative charge, 2 negative charge, and eventually you should hit the polyatomic ion that you're familiar with. Okay, now this is not the last step, because what I want, part of what you're going to do in your homework is you're going to label these things acids and bases. Now, it can be a lot. Here, let's just write it here. This is acid. This is a base. Now the H3O plus has become an acid, but it becomes the conjugate acid. Or what do we call H2PO4 negative? Conjugate base. Now, you might look at this, pay attention to this, okay? You might look at that and say there's H's, so it's an acid, so why am I labeling it a base? And in the very next equation, it does act like an acid. But in this reaction, it's not acting like an acid. That's why we do it one reaction at a time. Okay? So in this, you're labeling it for this one. So it can be a lot to label these, A, acid, base, all that. So I'm just going to say A and B. And then how can I abbreviate conjugate base? CB. And H3O positive is going to be CA. Canada. Okay. PO4 3 negative, is that going to be a conjugate base or a conjugate acid? Well, it doesn't. Notice how it's the thing that has lost its hydrogen ion. So after this guy has tagged the other guy with the hydrogen, it's now become a base. All right, on Wednesday, you are going to have an opportunity to work on your homework. You're going to have a sub, and you're going to work on your homework. I'm going to still give you your homework early, because you will have a quiz on Thursday. But if you like, you can just wait till Wednesday to do your homework in class. Okay? But here it is in case you want to start early. There's the bell. Have a good rest of your day.